when I think about coral reefs and read about them and observe them even firsthand and hear from people older than me who've observed them, it's striking the amount of decline that has happened to coral reefs across the world coming out of human industrialization. You know, a current big impact is climate change because corals are adapted to live close to their thermal maximum. So they can live at a pretty warm temperature, but if you push them too far above that, they're not prepared for it. Which is why some people talk about coral bleaching. So when the symbiosis collapses, the colorful algae that are in the coral are degraded or expelled, and it leaves behind clear coral tissue, and you can see straight through to the bone-white skeleton. Warmer ocean waters increase the chances that this bleaching will occur, and then the bleaching is linked to mortality. And as individual corals die, then the reefscape will become degraded.
Ocean, specifically coral reefs, and more specifically corals, account for a large chunk of the oxygen necessary for humans to be able to survive. And so if coral reefs are generating half of that oxygen, 10% of the oxygen in the atmosphere, and we inevitably cause for coral reefs to die off entirely, then our planet will see termination. We will not be able to survive if the coral reefs don't survive. You know, we have to overcome this issue. It is a matter of survival for our species.
I think that here in Hawaii, it's a big challenge for us, right? We have a lot of population living close to the sea level, and so along with the stresses on our reefscape from climate change, we also are probably going to see sea level rise and maybe even like more storm energy as this like threatens communities, threatens roads. I think that, you know, what the human response is going to be, we're going to do something, and the question is like, you know, can we do that in a way that can sort of like sustain itself? And my feeling is like if we can incorporate corals into our near shore human structures, then they do maybe have a better potential for being successful in the role that we're trying to create.
There's temperature buoys in Kaneohe Bay that have been reading sea surface temperature for decades, and so we've got all that data, and then we were able to model what end of century temperatures would look like in Kaneohe Bay, and each tank is able to mimic those temperatures. So here we have conditions that are projected to be in 2050, and you can see the corals in here. So they were experiencing some heat stress, and you can see some of those bleached corals like here and here.
We have this location here, right on a coral reef, right on some of the harshest kind of coral treatment that might be almost anywhere else. We can do a lot of really specific forward-thinking sciences because the temperature here in Kaneohe Bay is higher than almost anywhere else in Hawaii. So we can take some of our corals that are used to higher temperatures, compare them against other corals somewhere else, and we can say, okay, here's how they react, even though they might be the same species, just based on their different location, what's going on, and kind of using that information to push forward our understanding and what we know coral and how they'll react in the future.
What we're able to do is we're able to take the sick, damaged, dying corals back into our facilities. We treat them and get them up to perfect health, and we propagate them and generate these much, much larger colonies of corals that we can then return back onto the reef and fix in place. So for every coral that gets knocked off, every anchor drag that occurs, we can take that negative situation and turn it into an opportunity to improve the reef to better condition than it was before that happened.
I think a lot of times people, when they hear about these things, they also lose hope. But we can't do that. We can't lose hope, because when you lose hope, then you give up and you don't want to do anything about it, and then you're leaving it up to a certain group of people. But we all need to be aware and work together on this issue.